All right, guys, real quick, I just want to give a shout out. We are live streaming on Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, and also Kick. So we're everywhere that you can consume content. And now it's time to consume the big content of the week, which is basically Disney is suing Governor Ron DeSantis over in Florida. And this is a very strange story, in my opinion, but it kind of makes sense. So for those of you out there who are in the chat complaining that we're not talking about nerdy topics, this is about Disney and their weird agenda. So even though there is a political bend to this, we feel like it's relevant because it goes to, basically Star Wars and Marvel and Pixar and all that stuff. So Disney is basically suing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, alleging that he's unfairly targeting them for political revenge, essentially. And this is all about the Reedy Creek Development District down in Florida, where Disney World is basically like the Vatican. Like they have their own government down there, and they are self-regulating, and they're kind of like their own city-state within Florida. And a while back, they had this, Chris, what was it called? It was the Children's Protection Act, but everyone referred to it as the Don't Say Gay Bill.
Don't Say Gay Bill, yeah.
And it was basically a bill to kind of say that, like, hey, you can't teach like sexuality to kids under the age of 8 in schools. It's just like, that's something that's a right that belongs to the parents, and we don't want it being taught to children by people who aren't being supervised or who aren't following some type of like curriculum. And it became this big thing where it was like an attack against, homosexuality, at least in Hollywood. And Bob Chapek, the CEO of Disney at the time, came out and basically threw Disney's hat into the ring to say that we are against this bill. And Governor Ron DeSantis said, like, oh, you guys have a lot of special privileges since the 60s. And we're going to take a look at that and take some of that away, because if you want to F around and find out and get into politics, we are going to treat you like every other company. So basically, the big thing here is that Disney had a bunch of special provisions in Florida, and now those provisions are being taken away, and they're just like every other company in Florida now, and they don't like that. And so what's apparently happening here is that Disney is trying to slow the roll of the new oversight board from Florida and hope that they can get a new governor in after DeSantis leaves, so they can get all their special permissions back. And so this is like a delay tactic. It's not really like a good lawsuit. So Matt Vader 74, what do you think of this whole thing? Because they're suing Governor Ron DeSantis himself, not the state of Florida or anything like that, but Ron DeSantis for unfairly targeting the biggest corporation in the world.
I think it's going to get thrown out in the end. I don't think it's going to even matter. I think I don't have a whole ton of lot to say about this other than I think they're just trying to do some kind of stall tactic stuff to where they can deal with all of this stuff after Ron DeSantis is out of office. Because, you guys know the court stuff takes years to deal with, and these guys all have a lot of money and a lot of lawyers, and they're going to be able to drag this thing out for a super long time unless it just gets thrown out. And everybody knows that Ron DeSantis is running for president. It's going to happen. I think he's got a fairly decent chance to win, depending on what Trump does. But in the end, they're hoping somebody else is going to end up in the Florida governor's mansion. And whoever that person is, I'm sure Disney is going to try to influence the crap out of trying to get their guy in there in the end. So I think it's a delay tactic to try to stop all this stuff that's going on with the Reedy Creek thing, which I don't entirely understand because I don't live in Florida and I really don't care all that much. So that's that. Yeah.
Brian, back in the day when Disney bought this land, it was all swampland. It was considered undevelopable or whatever. So it was basically just worthless land, and they got this really sweetheart deal. But now, like they've developed everything down there. It's its own kind of like little area. And Ron DeSantis has been trolling Disney hard. Like he's been saying like, oh, like I'm going to build a prison next to Disney World and all this other stuff. So there is a case to say that, like he's been messing around with Disney, but then again, Disney messed around with him first. So what's your take on this whole thing?
Yeah.
isn't it insane that a giant, huge, multinational, multi-billion-dollar business can decide that a government official, they don't like a government official, so they're going to fight back, not against the state that the government official represents, but personally the person in charge of that office. That isn't that scary to anyone else? Like that sounds a whole lot like, better stay in line, politicians. We'll just come after you next. It sounds a lot like I would love to see the people that are like cheering for Disney right now, because there's people that cheer for the multi-billion-dollar multinational company. I would love to see this switch. Let's put Disney suing Hillary Clinton or some other person on that side of the aisle. And I wonder what they'd be saying. They'd be saying, well, this sets a bad precedent. Why are they going after an individual? An individual representing a state. They can feel targeted all they want, but they're being targeted by the office. And maybe they are being targeted by DeSantis. Sure. But he represents the office. He's not representing himself when he's going after Disney. So being able to go after the actual person legally it shouldn't be something that you're allowed to do, because now every politician, if they're smart, would watch what they're saying, what they're doing, what policies they're enacting, what lobbyists they're throwing out of their building before they do anything, so that they don't get gone after personally. And that is ridiculously insane to me. That there's a giant company allowed to go after a person for the service to their public office, whether it's right or wrong. And I don't even know if it's right or wrong. I don't really care. It's Disney, okay? They'll be fine. All right. I just think that a business being able to go after a person is really problematic. And I'm sorry I'm using that word. I almost vomited a little bit.
That's a good word.
But it is. It's problematic, right? You're going after an actual person, not the office they represents, the person himself. Now let's take politics out of it. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle that person's on. That really shouldn't be allowed, considering politicians are here to protect people from corporations. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Disparu. One of the interesting things about this is that Disney's park business has been like their biggest earner for like a long time. And it's actually helped kind of float some of their missteps in the entertainment end of things. So like basically you have Disney who's systematically destroyed their most profitable IPs with like Star Wars and Marvel and stuff like that. And then you have Bob Iger coming back as like the savior, and Disney, they called it the Disney bloodbath, where they started firing thousands of employees. And a big issue here that has been a monkey wrench that has been thrown into the Disney machine is the fact that now Disney World, which is one of the biggest theme parks on the face of the earth and a huge earner for the Disney Corporation, is now in danger of all types of government oversight, because you got to understand that in the Reedy Creek Development District, they were the ones who set their own laws, and so they didn't have to comply with a lot of Florida's like building regulations and stuff like that. So if Florida starts coming in and doing inspections on Disney World, and they find a bunch of like violations of like Florida guidelines, this could cost Disney billions if they want to keep that Disney World open. What's your take on this, and how do you think Disney is going to be affected by it?
Well, obviously, being over here, I had no idea the sheer size of this place until people started talking about it, and then you find out that it does have its own rules, it's got its own police force, and all this kind of stuff. Like, how is this even in existence? That's
Right.
why, for me, when they're sort of like, well, they're removing, it's like, yeah, why do you have it in the... It's so insane. You're essentially your own little country. I'm
It's a
amazed it's
country.
even allowed to exist legally. Yeah. And so, you're not persecuting somebody by treating them unfairly. If anything, you're making things fair by subjecting this company to the rules that everybody else has to follow.
Amen,
and
brother.
if Disney has a problem with those rules, maybe they should be petitioning for everybody to have those kind of rules. Maybe everybody deserves to do whatever they want with their own land. Like, they're taking the entire wrong thing by going, no, only we should have this exact special treatment. And I don't even know how they get away with saying it's targeted, because how can you prove that you're being targeted when you're the only one with a thing? He could have gone, I actually want to remove these rules for everybody in this entire state. Well, you just happen to be the only person with them. So it's not my fault. I'm just closing something I never agreed with in the first place.
That's what he should have said. He should have said, no one should be, everyone is going to be subject to these same rules. And they're like, well, we're the only ones that fall into that category. Well, that's not my problem.
Mm-hmm. If anybody else had these kind of things, then you would as well. And I do think that it's definitely the case. Like, you look at Disney Plus, the amount of money they're spending on that. If you want to balance the books, the money's got to come from somewhere. And so if the parks take a hit, and that means that Disney actually has to start making business decisions where you actually have to care about profit, because my theory has always been businesses should care about profit. That's how everybody gets the best results. That's the only thing you should care about. And if you have anyone in your company saying that you should make decisions about anything else, they really should be making decisions. And that's where I think Disney especially has lost its way.
Sparrow, if the profit is their main concern as a business, then they're serving their shareholders. But additionally, the people who are consuming the products are actually the ones in charge. So it's a win-win for everyone. Free enterprise is great. Well, it's a good thing. We shouldn't ignore that.
Hey guys, if you could do me a quick favor, if you like this episode and it tickles your fancy, or any other episode that we've done in the past, share it on social media and tag us in that post so that we know you're talking about us, and we will immediately jump onto that app and we will respond to your tag, and we can talk about what you like about the episode and possibly talk about something that we might want to cover in the future. And we would love to bring you in our community. We have a wonderful Discord app as well. There's a bunch of people in there that just love chatting with us. And we'd love to hear from you. So if you like this podcast, tag us in that post and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you guys so much. Back to the podcast.
You know, I think that real estate is their biggest superpower, not the parks, because the parks generate income. But remember, during COVID, they also lost a ton of income every day, like millions of dollars a day, right? But the real estate surrounding the parks, where they own entire countries, small countries of
bowling
land,
alleys, restaurants, all that
those
stuff.
are all being rented out, leased, whatever. Billions of dollars worth of income coming in just off being landlords. I live in Orange County, and I'm like Disneyland's like right down the street, right? They don't own just Disneyland here. So Disneyland's in the city of Anaheim. They just own Anaheim. Like, there's literally Anaheim and they call it Anaheim and unincorporated Anaheim. Unincorporated Anaheim is a nice way of saying the small part of Anaheim that Disney doesn't own. I'm not joking.
Freedom Anaheim.
Yeah, it's like this. It's like the outskirts right before Fullerton, and it's very sort of a sketchy area that Disney just didn't seem to, see a point in getting too close to the freeway.
You're describing it like a pirate thing, where they're like, we go to the fringes of the map where nobody goes.
The Ridge Worlds. But that's pretty much here. Like, they own so much of the city that they had to call it Anaheim and unincorporated Anaheim. So in Anaheim, when you're electing an official in Anaheim, like a local elections, there's no official running that isn't bought and paid for by Disney, because there's no way they would even get the job. It's not possible when Disney owns 87% of the city. The city, they own that much of it. So it's not just the parks.
That's why it's funny when I think wasn't there a governor like yesterday came out and went, well, if you want to move, you can come here. How are you going to move a place? Like, this isn't just a business. You can move office spaces. There's actually an entire region that you'd have to literally pick up out of the ground and shift. And there is a thing in their complaints, because it's not just DeSantis, it's a load of other people, and they just say, I'm suing you in your official capacity. But they specifically say that you are punishing us and Disney's protected speech. And I don't know what anyone else's idea. I don't think a company should have protected. You're not a person. You're a company. So I don't think that you should have the same rights or everything. Why would a company need freedom of speech? If anything, it's the people that you employ they need their rights protected from you.
Yes.
if you run something, then you're providing a service that other people use for their freedom of speech. But I don't see why a company would need it.
No, you're right.
Mr. Reagan, what's your take on this? Because basically, Disney, as a far left-leaning company, came out and decided to get involved in politics. And as we've seen,
I'm aware of what happened
with Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch and stuff like that, when companies get political, it doesn't tend to turn out very well for them. So, what's your take on this?
Look. As someone with a special interest in politics, as somebody with a special interest in pop culture and media, I find this all shockingly boring. I don't know why you guys get so riled up about it. I don't care. But I do understand that it's important, and we need to talk about it a little bit. So I'll say this. I don't really like government subsidizing businesses at all. I kind of understand why Florida did this. I mean, Disprove basically said everything I wanted to say, but I'll add this. I don't think that I understand why Florida wanted to entice Walt Disney to build Disney World in Florida. I get that many years ago.
It's a giant swamp. That's why.
Exactly. They didn't really have any use for that land. He developed it. Okay, great. But yeah, they look. We don't like monopolies. We understand free market is great. I have a kind of I'm a very free market guy. But there are a couple of problems. Monopolies is a major problem. When governments subsidize major corporations, they end up becoming way too powerful. The government is essentially one massive monopoly with way too much control over way too much stuff. And so when they start colluding, let's use a leftist term, colluding with a major corporation, look, government is really supposed to keep these major corporations in check so that they don't F over the consumer and, other businesses like YouTube does with my channel, Mr. Reagan. But, because I've got a small business, YouTube's on my throat. The government should be protecting me. But who do they protect? They protect YouTube. They protect Google, right? And so government is helping out Disney, which presumably, reduces the capacity for a smaller business to compete with Disney. So when you have the government working with a major corporation, it's going to become so powerful they will be able to basically crush anybody who opposes them. Why is that a thing at all? I mean, I think Governor DeSantis, even without, with no regard whatsoever for what Disney has been doing, pushing against the federal or the state government, should just take away all this special treatment anyway. They should never have really had it in the first place. I understand why Florida wanted to entice Disney to build Disney World in Florida, but it's the 21st century. We have, Disney is so wealthy. It makes so much money.
Yeah, why wasn't there a time limit on it? Why wasn't there
exactly. There should have been some kind of
I understand the need for it. Like when you want Amazon to come to bum F Ohio somewhere to build their giant warehouse, just to get jobs and the economy going. All right, well, there needs to be a time limit.
I think they call it a sunset clause or something.
Yeah, something like that.
It shouldn't be in perpetuity. You own the entire state.
Yeah, okay, that's my last word on it. Is just that I hate government subsidizing businesses, and they should DeSantis should end every special privilege that Disney has in Florida.
All right,
I agree with that.
Yeah, Disney. It's kind of funny that they're complaining that they're being unfairly targeted when they've had special advantages that no other company in Florida has for a very long time. All right, we're going to get to some super chats before we head on to our next topic. So we got David Nelson for $1.99, cross pollination from the 199. Hail all. Well, here on the Salty Nerd podcast, we have the 499. Thanks to Scotty Dub. So that's our thing, is the 499.
I want to thank really quick all the FNT and Geeks and Gamers people this last week, as they've been tremendous, pushed us over the 10K level on YouTube, and we're gonna be doing a 10K celebration, and we're gonna talk all about that on Tuesday. So hail to the 199. Absolutely, thank you all so much. You're very important to us. So.
Yes, thank you, David Nelson. And we got our good friend Mikey, Mexican Iron Man. Shout out to the S&P for this amazing panel. Let's get this Mexican in the drawing and win me some wallet action. Hashtag Brown Lives Matter. Ha. Yes, Mexican Iron Man, you are in the drawing. We will be doing that at the end of the stream. We also have Joker's Voice for $10. Under the 67 agreement, Disney was supposed to develop an actual city, Epcot. Instead of cities of Bay Lake and Lake Buena Vista consist of 10 total modular homes occupied by Disney loyalists. It's funny to hear Drunk 3PO talk about this because, you know, he lives in Florida. He does like the Park Hoppin' channel. Yeah, he's deep into like all the ins and outs of Disney World. I listened to him on the live stream that the Geeks and Gamers guys did from the Salty Nerd podcast studio on Tuesday. Or was it Side Scrollers? It might have been Side Scrollers. But he basically talked about, you know, all the ins and outs of what Disney World's actually comprised of. And it was really interesting to hear about, like, you know, their modular, like they were required to have like certain residences on the property. And they were just like, okay, we'll build 10 trailer parks and that's it. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The Astro Nerd Boy, $5. Brian, have you thought of fleeing California like Nerdrotic did?
Like literally, it's a weekly thought, my friend. I'm not joking. I was born here, I was raised here, and then I joined the military when I was 18 to get out. I left and I went to other parts of the country, then other parts of the world, and realized it wasn't that bad. So I came back. And when I came back, I set up shop. I literally started my business here. And I was like, this is where I'm going to be. And I eventually hooked up with my brother and my partner, my brother, in my business. But then I realized something. I grew up and I live in Orange County, which is like this weird little red, almost purplish red spot in the middle of a vast, you know, sea of blue. And so in my head, I was like, where I'm from is not that bad. The politics are sort of moderate, sort of, you know, libertarian almost. The weather's pretty good. It costs a lot, but whatever. But as time went on, it got worse and worse and worse. And I'm realizing that my little red purplish island is shrinking. And pretty soon, my house is going to be the last one left. And I'm going to be on my roof trying to get Vader to get me a fucking airdrop back to Vegas or something. It's really horrible. But I'm now established here. Like, my kids go to a private school here. My wife works as in the schools. Like, she's like in the special school. And so she would have to leave a bunch of kids that she's been, you know, teaching for a long time. And my business is here. Now I can run my business anywhere. It's mostly YouTube. However, in California, that's where like 99% of all the textile stuff is. Printing, t-shirts, that kind of thing. And I do merch. So for me to leave, I would have to then be shipping all this stuff from where I live now to, say, Texas. And then the product would cost more. And users, you know, the end user would have to suffer that cost. So
yeah,
there's a lot of variables.
There are actual logistical issues with picking up and moving, especially if you have a business. Nerdrotic's business was YouTube. And once his wife's business got shut down by the state, it was easier for them to relocate, but that's not the case for everyone.
Hey guys, if you like this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and comment below on your favorite video as well. That goes a long way with helping us boost our channel and get out there in front of more people. And it lets YouTube know that we're doing something right. And if you want to catch us live, we go live 2 times a week, once on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time and on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. So join us there in the chat. We will see you on the live stream. Stay salty.